Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. The late night shows finally got to weigh in on the election. Trevor Noah said, I mean, it's bad enough for your boss to tell you to clean out your desk, but can you imagine if on the way to your desk, the entire office was lining the hallways to boo you? Seth Meyers said, wow, did he win an election or the World Cup? Did those people vote for Biden, or did they just pull down a statue of Saddam? Fallon said, yeah, for 75 million Americans, the announcement was like the greatest unboxing video of all time. Fallon, I'll always remember where I was when I heard the news. I was sitting in front of the TV like I had been 24 hours a day for the past 5 days. That's no joke. I had my TV on for like 4 straight days, and I don't think I had done that since 2001. I was sleeping on the couch watching these results. It's crazy. Kimmel said, I'll tell you what, it took almost the whole 4 years, but Donald Trump finally got a massive crowd to cheer him outside the White House. That's funny. Kimmel, what a weekend it was. People were dancing in the streets like Ewoks after they blew up the Death Star. Darth Tax Evader has been toppled, and America responded with a dance party. Fallon said Wolf Blitzer was like, we waited till Saturday because we knew people would want to go out and get turned. Colbert, never a good sign when the majority of Americans react to you losing your job the way they did to us getting bin Laden. That's harsh and true. Kimmel, and listen, I get that this is hard for Donald Trump. Processing a loss like this is going to take time. I mean, this is the first time he's ever failed at anything besides his casinos, his airline, his mortgage, Trump Steaks, Trump University, Trump Magazine, Donald Jr., Eric, etc. And Colbert said, I feel like America is, what's the word? Great again. A lot of new listeners joining the show. Welcome. I'll explain at the end of the podcast how this works every day. But real quick version is usually I do the late night jokes or comedian tweets at the top, then news stories, but more on that on the end. And I have been thinking, I'm excited that there's going to be Biden jokes now. Every now and then I'll get a note and it's like, your show is very anti-Trump. And I'm like, my show is pro-comedy and I'm just reading the late night jokes and they happen to be about Trump. So it'd be nice to get some new subjects in there. John Oliver spoke about Trump. This from the Hollywood Reporter. He was talking about the celebrations in New York. Now, I was in Queens when the news broke, and I heard outside just people cheering in the streets. It was incredible. It was like New Year's Eve. I really, whatever your political leanings are, the feeling of just hearing people cheering in the streets were incredible. And Oliver said it was like that all day here in New York. There was a mood here that can only be described as reverse 9/11. I think this premise is brilliant. Reverse 9/11. Why? Because it combined euphoria and abiding disgust for Rudy Giuliani, and this time people were actually dancing on the rooftops in New Jersey. It was a really good day, never forget. Recapping the coverage during the week, Oliver said, starting Tuesday evening, almost every news channel was overtaken by some version of a guy playing with a big screen while someone comes to interrupt and pester them with questions. It was basically the equivalent of watching the security footage at a Best Buy for 4 straight days. For starters, you can't just threaten to go to the Supreme Court when things aren't going your way. It's the highest court in the land, not the middle school principal's office. Secondly, they weren't finding ballots, they were counting them, and counting and finding are just not the same thing. That's why the movie Finding Nemo wasn't called Counting Nemo, because that would have been a very different and much shorter movie. One Nemo, the end. Apparently some people have been pranking the voter fraud hotline, and here at Daily Comedy News, we do not want you to do this. This from the Washington Post. Alex Hirsch, he's the creator of the Disney Channel TV show Gravity Falls. He called in to report that he saw a man matching the description of the McDonald's Hamburglar walk into a polling place wearing a black hat, black mask, a striped shirt, a red tie, and I believe there were hamburgers in the bag, and he was saying "robble, robble" as he was exiting the building. Hirsch added, like a burglar, you know? I think he's probably Antifa. Saw an interesting exchange on Twitter. The Independent tweeted, Rickey Gervais suggests Tom Hanks doesn't find him funny as he feels above his jokes. And then the response to that was from Rickey Gervais, who tweeted, clickbait, I suggested no such thing. Well, I took the clickbait and I clicked on it, and apparently Rickey was on a podcast called Stuff of Legends, and Rickey said, I think people who laugh at a joke, they get a round of applause because people go, oh, that's good, they can take it. We don't want people to be above it. We even let people be privileged as long as they say, I know I'm privileged, but I'm nothing really. We don't like people to go, oh, I deserve it. How dare you talk to me like that? If there's anything at all to this, it goes back to 2011 at an awards show. Rickey was about to introduce Tom Hanks and Tim Allen and said, and this is funny, what could I say about our next 2 presenters? The first is an actor, producer, and director whose movies have grossed over $3.5 billion at the box office. He's won 2 Academy Awards and 3 Golden Globes for his powerful and varied performances, starring in such films as Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, Castaway, Apollo 13, and Saving Private Ryan. The other is Tim Allen. That's funny, man. So apparently Hanks ad-libbed trying to be funny, and he said, remember when Rickey Gervais was a slightly chubby but very kind comedian, neither of which he is now. All right, so, you know, What are you saying, that Gervais got in shape and he just did a funny line? I don't think there's an actual beef there. And I'll take it from Rickey Gervais. He said no such thing. Bert Kreischer spoke to the Laugh Button, and he name-checked my favorite comedian, Adam Sandler. And they said, I remember early on in the pandemic, you did one of the funniest things that truly made me laugh, which was your interview with Adam Sandler. It was everything we needed right then. I got to ask, have you tried reaching out and getting him to come on one of your podcasts? Kreischer said, I would love that. You know, Adam's a little bit of an old head when it comes to podcasts and stuff like that. He'd do like Spades or Norms or his buddies, but he's not doing podcast runs. I got to be honest with you, man. That interview speaks so much to exactly my personality and who I am, because I'm genuinely a heartfelt fan first and foremost. I was just laying in bed back to back listening to Rogan with Matthew McConaughey and Kanye West. And by the way, Rogan's one of my closest friends, so I can definitely be a fan of his. And I'm a fan of Adam Sandler's. And I'm also cool with looking like a fool. I don't need to be a cool guy comic who has like a biting take on everything. I could be a goofball and giggle. Adam Sandler is the right comedian for that. And I swear to you that I thought that interview went perfect. I swear to God, I did not see it the way everyone else saw it until I got in the car. I was driving home, and Mike Gibbons called me. He was a writer on the cabin, and he called me and he said, that Sandler interview was amazing. And in my head, I was like, I didn't think it was amazing. I thought I did a good job. I didn't think it was amazing. I was like, amazing? And he's like, dude, you asked him if he had Netflix. And I was like, yeah, no. And he was like, he has a $200 million deal with Netflix. He's definitely got Netflix. That's the dumbest question anybody ever asked him. You were Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney. Bert, you called his movie Happy Madison. Is Happy Madison not an actual Adam Sandler movie? It should be. I'm going to steal that joke, Happy Madison. I'm stealing it. When you hear me say it, stealing it, admitting to stealing it. I am the Carlos Mencia of podcasts. You called his other movie Precious Gems. You know what? That also sounds like an Adam Sandler movie, stealing it. And I was like, that's not the name of the movie? No, that's not the name of the movie. You just kept sticking your head and going, hey, Adam, you want to hear a cool story? You fanboyed out and you screwed that interview up so badly. Everyone was calling me like, you train wrecked that interview. And literally, I was on the 101 driving home and said, it could have been that bad, right? And then you remember the ending of how that interview went. It was Whitney Cummings standing in her house 6 feet away from me, confused, like really confused. She kept saying, did you plan that? And I was like, no. And in my head, I was like, I just killed that interview. So it's like, that's what I do, Whitney. And I just left. Whitney was like, what was that? Spade reached out to me and was like, that Sandler interview was epic and Sandler loved your special. And I was like, what? That's all that mattered to me, that he would watch my special. And I think Sandler knew that I was just a fan. And sometimes when you're a fan, you get overwhelmed. And by the way, it happened to me. I had people do it to me before, and I don't even take offense to it. I just find it so endearing. So hopefully one day I can work with him on something. Even still, I'll fanboy out. I can't help it. I want to go watch Happy Madison now. That's your comedy news for today. All right, so new listeners, I do this 7 days a week. The episodes are, between 5 and 10 minutes long, unless Sarah Cooper does something, and then I go on a tangent for like 15 minutes. During the week, a typical episode will be late night jokes followed by a bunch of news stories, kind of like you just heard. On the weekends, sometimes, quite honestly, I'll pre-tape a weekend day and I'll do, 10 best episodes of this particular sitcom or the 20 best Adam Sandler movies or something like that. But you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. You can follow on Spotify. The social media accounts are facebook.com/Daily Comedy News or at DCNPod on Twitter. Would love to hear from you. And that's basically it. If you heard today's show, that's how the show goes. As for me, I ran SiriusXM Comedy for a decade, and I've been running the comedy properties at Slacker/Live by Live for the last 5 or 6, and I do some other things, so that's why I'm into comedy. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, and I'll see you all tomorrow.